very much, Mr. Speaker. I'm pleased to get an opportunity to speak to the appropriation bill. It's going by so fast, you've got to move quick here, and I didn't move fast enough before. So in third reading, we are speaking to the anticipated effect of the implementation of the bill. In this case, the anticipated effect of the budget, which is what the appropriation bill is. And there's a couple of observations I have about the process this year, and in fact, the Minister of Finance alluded to it in his opening comments. That they felt they'd really spent enough time on this and they'd like to move on. Not surprisingly, I have a very different take on that. In a couple of different areas, I continue to underline my concerns with the way the estimates debates are set up in Committee of Supply, although certainly some of my colleagues are fans of the moving it into the committees and the more informal setting. I'm not particularly a fan of that. But more than that is the lack of time to debate. And some people could jump to their feet and say, oh, you know, we can prove that you've actually got more time now than you did many, many years ago. And I would say, yes, and what was the budget then? Because we're now debating a total budget of several many millions of billions of dollars. I think it's in the, sort of in the $35 billion range at this point. I think when I first started it was $17 billion. And we essentially have the same amount of time. So we're debating twice as much money in the same amount of time. When I started in 1997, there was under 20 departments, and we're now dealing with 26 departments. And the way this is set up right now is that it's essentially one department each time a committee meets, and two committees meet every night, which makes it difficult for people who want to represent their constituents on more than one issue at a time without dashing back and forth between committees. And of course, there's a speakers list which the committee chair is holding, and your chances of getting on the speaking list in two committees in one night is slim to none. So we are debating far more money in the same amount or even less time. And now what we've had is, and the government occasionally says, oh, well, you know, if you're complaining about debating the health budget, which is, again, several billion dollars, close to $15 billion in the same amount of time that you're debating a much smaller financial commitment from some of the others. And the response is, well, I mean, you could just forego debating the other departments and split your health debate into two nights. Well, you know, I'm charged by my constituents to be here and to pay attention to all ministries. And granted, you may not give them all the same weight, but I don't think it's appropriate to not examine the budgets out of a department just because the government refuses to give more time to a larger department. So the effect of what we are seeing now is we're debating the effect, the outcome of a budget process which is twice as much money in the same or less amount of time, and significantly more departments are being debated. And then the new, it's not a take on it, but the new process that I noticed this year was a reluctance and or an attempt to influence and or a flat-out refusal to answer the questions that we were not able to have enough time to get on the record and have a back-and-forth discussion with the minister. So it has become, unfortunately, traditional that certainly members of the opposition and occasionally members of the government backbench will find that the clock has run out on them, and in the last 90 seconds they will say, well, here's the rest of the questions I had, I'll just read them into the record. and the ministers and their staff would take those questions and would produce them as written answers and mail them to us, usually sometime in the summer. Which again, seeing as we're supposed to be voting on the final version of the bill today, getting responses to questions in 3 or 4 months' time is not incredibly helpful. And what we were seeing is we actually had a staffer from a minister's office come over and meet with some of the official opposition staff, and he indicated that he really just didn't see what the value of these questions were. He didn't understand it himself, and so he really didn't think that we should be asking them. And did we understand that some poor sod in the minister's office or department was going to have to answer these questions? Well, yes, I do understand that, and I'd like an answer. That's why I'm asking the questions. I don't have enough resources, either personally or in our caucus, to be able to be making up questions just as a make-work project for ministerial staff. I ask the questions because I want the answers.